Hey Sainers, welcome to another episode of Saints TV Weekly. Another week, another Saints TV Weekly. Now, straight off the bat, the intro would have given it away, but just wanted to announce that we're really excited to have Inglewood Coffee Roasters on board from Mount Waverley. I've been chatting to them over the last couple of weeks, and they're keen to get on board and support Saints TV Weekly. So from here on out, they're going to be basically sponsoring the videos and supporting the channel. And as part of that, they've flicked across some delicious coffee that they've created. This is from Tanzania. It's beautiful. It's got Pimm's cucumber, caramel, and nashi pear. And again, as you would have seen in the intro, they sent across an AeroPress coffee maker, which is beautiful. And this is what I'm drinking today. So great to have them on board. It's beautiful coffee. I love my coffee. They're great people. They're delicious coffee. Love their business. And as part of all of this, they are providing you guys watching at home a discount code on the website for all of their coffee products. And by that, I mean the actual coffee. So if you go onto the website and type in Saints30 on the checkout page in the discount code section, you will get 30% off all of their coffee products, which is amazing and very generous of them to do that. So great to have them on board. Straight off the bat, I wanted to kick off the episode with that really good news, and I'm really excited to have them on board and to help them promote their great work as well. Now, obviously, I can't do that intro without having a bit of a sip of this delicious Tanzania coffee. So I'll do that, and then we'll get into some of the news. That hits different. I mean, honestly, I've been making some instant coffee over the last couple of weeks, and no competition. Similar to the grand final on the weekend. This is Melbourne, the instant coffee in the cupboard. That's the Bulldogs in the last quarter and a half. All right, so it's not really the busiest week in terms of news coming out of Moorabbin. It's really only the one piece of news that we can talk about today, and that's the announcement of Damien Carroll as the Head of Development and Learning. And St Kilda announced this, I think, on Thursday last week. They mentioned that St Kilda is excited to welcome Damien Carroll as its new Head of Development and Learning. Carroll comes to St Kilda from Collingwood, where he was responsible for overseeing the club's development programs. The former teacher also held positions with Hawthorn, where he coached Box Hill to a VFL premiership in 2013, served as an assistant coach in 2015, and was later appointed to the Head of Development and Learning. So he's worked with the best. He's worked directly with Alistair Clarkson and part of that premiership winning coaching staff. So that in itself is great. Obviously, he'd know Brett Ratton through that time. And after that, he was at Collingwood and Head of Development there. And they've got some good young kids coming through, and no doubt his hands have probably been a bit full in the last couple of years with Collingwood and the way that their structure's been going on. But I love that we've got him on board. He's well respected. He's worked around the best and learnt from the best, and I think it's good to just have someone dedicated to that role, and that's what we talked about, I think, last week on Saints TV Weekly. We're getting those key pillars put into place early now, and then trade will open up in the next couple of weeks, and we can really focus on getting the players that the coaches are going to end up coaching and get that sort of consistency early and not be in limbo as to who's coaching, a month down the track. We're getting it done now, getting the business done, and then we can focus on the structures in terms of what players come in, what players go, and how the list looks going into 2022. So good appointment there. Hopefully more to come, but that's a good start for the club. Now the interesting news of the week. Last week, there was a bit of talk about Luke Dunstan and how he polled 11 Brownlow votes, and we didn't really hear much of him in the best and fairest. Well, he came out and he spoke to, I think, Sportsmate on the radio, and I've got some of his key quotes here, so we'll have a chat about those, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. I know that a lot of people commented and were pretty against what he said and happy for him to leave, but also other people were thinking that maybe that's a bit of a sign that the club's culture isn't exactly where we need it to be. Pretty much finished the coffee already. I mean, I got to enjoy coffee more. I just scull the thing. All right. So Dunstan came out on Sportsmate, and he basically said, this is what he said straight from horse's mouth. I guess the injury didn't help, but at times certain coaches get opinions of players, and once they get opinions, it's pretty hard to change them. I wouldn't say I didn't get on with Brett Radden, but I think it's pretty clear that he didn't rate me, which is fine. It's hard to change opinions. For me, it's just about being in a happy environment where you feel valued as a player and as a person, and just feel a part of something would be the biggest thing. I'd love to go to Essendon. My good friend Nick Hine went there last year. So that is, a pretty shortened version of what he said, but, I don't know how to take that. It's just, I feel like he's just frustrated. It's not meant to take, it's not really a pot shot. Some people will say that that's what it is, but I think it really is just him being really frustrated and trying to be as transparent as he can without really offending anyone. And at the end there, he's kind of just thrown in the old, I'd love to go to Essendon, so kind of getting them interested. But when you look at their midfield, no offense to Dunny, but I don't know where he fits in, so I don't think Essendon would be the right pick for me. Not that it makes a difference, but some people think that he's delisted, but I actually think he's still contracted. I don't know when this technically ends, but I feel like we're playing our cards close to our chest, but to the point where if a club comes calling, we might actually still get some compensation for him. It might not be much, but it's going to be something something more than if he was delisted and we got nothing. So interesting comments. I think he's just frustrated. I get that, but if you take his side of the story, you've also got to hear out the other side of the story, and that's we've had him for I think 6 or 7 seasons. His first season was decent. He was better than expected, and then the middle 3 to 4 years not great. He had a patch of really good games this year, 6 games, polled 11 Brownlow votes. But is that something that he can do consistently, or is it something that he's just doing because he knows he's got to find a new club and there's all these other circumstances around his form? So I can see why the club's just happy to let him go, but I can also see why he's frustrated. So I think it's, just depends on what lens you've got on. But for me, I think this shows that Rats is willing to be ruthless and willing to, even if he's a good clubman and he's got good mates there and he helps out the AFLW team, he's still willing to let guys go like Luke Dunstan to prove a point and basically to tell every other player on the list that even if you put in a 11 Brownlow vote season like Dunny, you're gone. Because if you don't fit the team, if your skills aren't up to scratch and you're not able to execute the game plan and the style that I want you to, you're not part of this team. So I like that. If anything, I see this as a statement of intent from Rats. I think a good sign and shows some maturity in terms of the list management. And so we'll see where that takes us. But, from my end, I think that it's expected, and I think Dunstan's just really frustrated. So hopefully he does find a good home. I rate him as a person. And I think, a team like Gold Coast may benefit from him as well. So we'll see what happens, but those are the comments from Luke Dunstan. If you got any thoughts on that, leave them in the comments below and I'll read them and comment back when I can. Now, in terms of some juicy trade rumours, these are ones that have circulated late last week. I think I mentioned that we're looking at Laddams from Port Adelaide, the ruckman. I think he's had talks with Port Adelaide, and Port Adelaide actually open to letting him go, which is surprising because he's actually not bad. He's 23 years old. He's had some big games for Port Adelaide. He's played forward. He can play in the ruck. He's a good all-round ruckman. He's fairly fit, good beneath his feet. Perfect, second fiddle for Ronald Marshall post Paddy Ryder at the end of next year. But what I've heard is he is interested in coming to St Kilda. Now, there's a lot of talk about he doesn't want to play as that second ruck or potentially at Sandy because we've got Paddy Ryder, we've got Rowan Marshall, Max Heath is coming through. Why would he come to St Kilda when he can go somewhere else and basically be number one ruck from the start? I've heard he's just excited to team up with Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder, and he's excited to see out next year and then move into 2023, knowing that Paddy Ryder's probably retired by that point and he can work in tandem with Rowe. And Rowe may, drift forward more. Say if we don't get Ben King, Rowe could go forward more, and Laddams could take the bulk of the ruck work. So that's kind of from his end, what he sees happening. But obviously, it's entirely up to St Kilda to offer him something and to begin talks with him too. So very early stages. That's what I've heard. I've heard it directly from someone in South Australia that has spoken to Ladhams. That's the word on the street from my end. So if anyone's wondering what my source is, it's a South Australian that has spoken to him directly. So that's pretty strong, I think. But obviously a lot of clubs are looking for rucks, and we've missed out on a few already, with McLean obviously re-signing from Sydney, and then you've got Chol from Richmond, who's on his way to Gold Coast, I believe. So this is another one that we're looking at. The other one from Port Adelaide we're also looking at is Tom Cleary. The one thing that I think is going to push us away from him is that he's on a back-ended deal, and that means he's going to be pretty expensive, and I don't think we want to bring in anyone too expensive. And that's why I think we're looking at Brander from West Coast as well. He's out of contract, and a lot of clubs are going to be interested in him. He's not really massive, but he'd be good enough in the back line. I think he's more of an intercept type, but we could potentially turn him into something more than that to support Dougal Howard, and he'd be a lot cheaper than Cleary. So I think, there's a few there that we're looking at the moment, but they're very early stages, and obviously the trade week hasn't even started yet, so nothing really is going to come out of it. But from my end, those seem logical. It's just whether we can afford them in the first place, and whether they even want to come to St Kilda. So we know that Ladhams is interested. Cleary, don't know, but he's obviously good friends with Dougal Howard from when Port gave us Dougs and when he played there, obviously. And then with Brander, there's going to be a lot of competition for him. So it just depends on what he wants and how much money I guess he wants in his next role. Now, those are the players that are rumoured to be coming to St Kilda, and obviously players that I think we should be interested in. Now, we've got not rumour, but some news that has just broken. It isn't new news. This is something from a couple of years ago that was on the radar, and that's Essendon looking at Ben Long. So that's something that I've just heard. Ben Long, Essendon are basically asking the question of Ben Long. They've gone to his management and asking, where does Ben Long sit? He's 24 years old. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract, and he only played 15 games this year, including 4 as the sub. So that's 11 games really where he's basically started. He's keen to stay and fight for his spot in the best 22, but that hasn't stopped Essendon from knocking on the door and asking about his situation and potentially what could get him across. And like I said, they were interested 2 years ago, so I think they're just kind of topping up. He's only 24. I think he's got a career at St Kilda. I think that he showed glimpses at the end of this year and as a pressure forward and what he can bring in a physical manner to the club. Not so much on he's not an accumulator. He doesn't kick a lot of goals, but sometimes you need players like him in finals that just smash blokes and put blokes under pressure and force them into mistakes. So I'd love to keep him, but Essendon are there and he's contracted. So if we are willing to get rid of players like Ben Long for the sake of, say, getting draft picks in, which might strengthen our hand for this year or maybe even next year, whether that helps us with Ben King or not, the pursuit of Ben King. These are the sort of things we're going to have to think about carefully. That's something that club's going to have to consider, and Ben Long's going to have to consider. That's a player that they're interested in, so we'll keep some tabs on that, and we'll let you guys know if anything eventuates on that front. And based on that, guys, that is essentially Saints TV Weekly for another week. I think this is the quickest one yet. Obviously, I haven't mentioned it at the top because I was talking about Inglewood and having them on board, which is fantastic. But time to talk about the elephant in the room, just quickly. Melbourne. Congratulations. 57 years, you ended the drought. Your fans are going nuts. Everything that I dream of is what you're going through now in reality. I did a video yesterday basically talking about St Kilda now having the longest drought as a result, 55 years and counting. So if anyone hasn't watched that, hit that up on the YouTube channel, give it a like, give it a comment. I'd love that support. But basically, I just talked about how I'm feeling about that, and I won't give too much away, but basically I turned it into a positive. I want it to be used as some energy and some strength and some drive to really focus on 2022 is the year of the Saints and the year that we break our drought. So I'll leave it there, guys. Hit up that video if you want and give it a watch, but that's it for Saints TV Weekly. Again, I'd love to quickly give a shout out to Inglewood. Brilliant coffee. So any of you Sainers out there that love your coffee as much as I do, hit them up. Go onto their website. Saints30 is the discount code. You'll get 30% off on all of this stuff, which is amazing. and it's some of the best coffee going around. And funnily enough, one of my favorite cafes down the road that I go to, I didn't know, but it's from them. Their coffee is sent in from them. So it just was all a bit of a coincidence, but fate would have it, I guess, that they're now jumping on board and sponsoring Saints TV Weekly. So thanks again to Inglewood, and I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for Saints TV next week and any videos that come out in the meantime. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed to the channel, I've looked at the stats. I'm an analytical person. 51% of people in the last 30 days that have watched Saints TV have not subscribed to the channel. So for all of you that enjoy what I do and enjoy the effort that I put into the channel, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the podcast, there's so much going on the Saints TV front. If you love all that stuff, I'd really appreciate it if you just hit subscribe and join the Saintly crew on YouTube. So have a great rest of your week, Sainters, and I'll see you next week on Saints TV Weekly. Go you mighty Sainters.